Whether you're conquering professional exams or personal milestones, we welcome you to Beyond Clean's Confidence Certification, the 52-week test prep podcast series. With expert insights, actionable tips, and engaging discussions, we'll break down the toughest concepts in sterile processing and build your confidence every step of the way. Join host Sarah B. Cruz as she embarks on a mission to help you not just prep for tests, but craft your success story. And now your host, Sarah B. Cruz.
Hello and welcome. You're listening to Confidence Certification, a 52-week test prep podcast series to equip you to take your sterile processing career to the next level. I'm your host, Sarah B. Cruz, and on this episode, we're going to be talking about why we don't want to memorize. Hey, everybody, wasn't last week's episode awesome? Rick is just a wealth of knowledge, and especially when he starts to talk about the value of coaching yourself through understanding and really building that comprehension story. So when we start to learn why instead of memorize, that's what we're doing. We're building our comprehension. So I want to spend some time this episode on what comprehension means and really how to make comprehension work for us. And if you're anything like me, you know that memorization doesn't necessarily work. Okay, listen, I'm not saying that you can't memorize everything. I can't memorize everything. I need to write it down or it's going to be out of my brain forever. Hence my study style. I like to read and then I write down what I just read to really cement it in. But there is the power in memorization. You can stare at something and really get it in your head. But the problem with memorization is that once you use the entity that you have memorized, there's nothing really grabbing it and holding it in your head, dare I say, that it kind of leaves, and making sure that we can give our memorization something to grab onto, a reason why, more than just passing our certification tests, is going to help us build comprehension. Yes, folks. So when we learn why, we are giving the legs and the hands necessary to our memorization to stick in our brains. So what is comprehension? Comprehension is such a crucial component to our test prep and our future professional applications. Knowing why we are performing a process and then constantly updating that information as new information comes out is the difference between a positive patient safety outcome and not. And that's where comprehension comes in. If we are just doing a process, going through the motions because that's how we were taught, we're lacking that ability to objectively look at a situation and determine if it is the best process or if it's going to yield the outcomes that we want. Kind of like building a comprehension in our certification test prep, right? We're trying to understand why we are doing what we are doing. And that's the difference between memorization and comprehension, truly. Memorization is important and it's a great entry point. But as we start to really comprehend what we're doing, we're almost evolving memorization. Okay. And while it sounds a little extreme when I say, comprehension's the difference between a positive patient safety outcome, it's not. Welcome to sterile processing. It is all about patient safety. And if we can't understand why, we may need to comprehend the sincerity and intensity of that before taking our tests or clocking in for our shifts. Okay. And comprehension also allows us to understand the sincerity of the profession that you are studying for. Okay. I'm not saying that any other job is less important or that sterile processing is the most important job, but there's a reason why they call our profession the heart of the hospital. And if sterile processing is the heart of the hospital, you, the current technician or the future technician, will be the pulse of that department. No machines will run. Cart washers will just go off, and we all know how great that sound is, if you are not present. And there's a difference between being the button pusher or the person that just studied their test and got into a department than being the professional that saves lives and prevents surgical site infections. We got to put the no in nosocomial, guys. And really, comprehension is that key part in that. Because comprehension demonstrates the why behind the test questions. That's the reason why when we take our tests, they're not asking us what button to press on our autoclave. Again, I don't write the tests or anything like that. I'm not part of that process. I'm not part of the subject matter expert series. That's just not where I sit. But the tests are not going to ask you what you do every day at work if you're already in the field. They're going to ask you why you do what you do every day at work. What happens inside that sterilizer when you press start? What are the different cycles? Why do you take off your PPE the way that you do? What type of detergent or enzymatic and what are you using in decon? And why is cavitation? And what is cavitation? This is where the glory and truly the passion of being a sterile processing professional sits. And that is the power of comprehension in our certification test prep. We're going to take a quick break and be right back, guys. It's time for our mid-episode confidence boost, where we focus on key sterile processing test concepts. Now, there's no guarantee these concepts will be on the test that you take, but they are key concepts to the workplace and are discussed in the literature. Today, we'll cover sterile barrier systems, also known as packaging. Sterile barrier systems refer to wrappers, textiles, also known as woven wraps, non-woven wraps, paper plastic pouches, and rigid sterilization containers. These products are used in the sterilization of the instruments that they cover. Their purpose is to provide the barrier around our instruments that prevent microbes from contaminating them after sterilization. The three basic principles of a sterile barrier are: 1. The material must allow the sterilant to reach the contents of the package. 2. The material must provide a good barrier to all types of microorganisms and other contaminants. And then 3. The package must be able to be opened without contaminating the contents, also known as aseptic presentation. A lot of that relies on following the IFUs and packaging recommendations when selecting which barrier to use on the item that we are preparing for sterilization. Storage conditions, shelf life, and handling are all key components to maintaining the integrity of the sterile barrier that we select. That's going to wrap this week's mid-session confidence boost. Good luck. Hey everybody, and welcome back. If you are just joining us, go ahead and start this episode over again, because we are discussing why it's important to know why, right? And like I had said, there are benefits in memorizing the content of our books and our study manuals. I mean, there's a reason why flashcards work, am I right? Like, shout out to the kinesthetic learners that love a good flashcard. Oh, and especially when you're making your own flashcards and you're combining that kinesthetic and that writing aspect to your study. What's up, study style? That's great. I personally have used flashcards unsuccessfully because it just doesn't sit in my brain very well like that. There's just too much going on in my head for me to sit and memorize. Now, there are benefits to memorizing in your certification test prep, though. There's going to be definitions, concepts. Oh, there will be words you've never heard before in your life. And listen, don't even get me going on the acronyms, okay? I feel like a few episodes back, we did a whole mid-session confidence boost on the importance of acronyms in sterile processing. I mean, like SPD, you can't escape them in our space. So yes, there is a certain level of memorization that must happen. What I'm suggesting is taking that level of memorization after you've memorized what, CDC stands for. Try to build out that comprehension on how you're going to remember what CDC stands for. Okay? So as we start to build out how to apply what we've memorized, That's that comprehension again. Okay. So let's think about what that looks like. Let's build an example of how to turn something we've memorized into comprehension, right? Or application. Yeah. So let's build out an example of that. Something real life, how we can take something that we've memorized and turn it into comprehension. And frankly, the key point is application. Yes. So a lot of the times when we're taking something from mere memory to building out comprehension and understanding why, application is that little bridge between those two phenomena. Okay. So let's go ahead and build this out. Okay. So you've just learned that you need to don and doff your PPEs a certain way in decontamination. Now, while you're putting on all of your gear and you're learning all of it, you may start to think, wow, this is so much stuff to put. And so while you're putting on all your gear, you're realizing all these layers and you're starting to think to yourself, wow, this is a lot of stuff to wear in decon. These are a lot of protective equipments we have going on here. Isn't it going to be a little hot? Maybe I don't need to wear my mask because I have my face shield on. Pause. Let's look at why a mask is important. See, here comes that application. We wear the mask in decon to help with droplet transmission, and protecting ourselves from inhaling droplets. Now, there's a tremendous amount of new studies coming out about the quality and efficacy of our PPEs. Again, our industry is always growing and changing and evolving. However, the fact that we know about our different transmission models, right? Droplet, airborne, contact, means that we understand why the mask is important. So we've put that application of, okay, I need to wear this mask because I understand what droplet transmission is and I don't want to get sick that way in decontamination. Yeah? Okay, let's do another one together. Oh, this is fun. I like that. So you are on assembly and you have just learned what envelope fold, triangle fold is in preparing the instrumentation for sterilization. So you've got your wrap out, or you've never had your wrap out, you're just reading about it in your book, and you bring that first fold up. Now, that first fold doesn't cover all of your instrument set. If we don't understand why that first fold has to create that initial layer so that we can have the appropriate layers from our left, our right, and our top side, we may be making an ideal environment for microbials to grow. Yes, just that one first fold, not covering the entire instrument set all the way to the back, right, can be the reason why our set does not maintain its sterility after sterilization. And then we sit and we think, well, it looks so much nicer like this. It's very tight. It looks pretty. You know, if I use a bigger wrap, it might cause all these other issues. Well, all of those are important. Let's look at that application. Let's look at that comprehension. The wraps IFUs detail that it needs to be prepared in a certain way in order to meet the standards and the process that the company did to achieve the sterility with the product. Okay. This is that comprehension. This is that understanding why this is our application. Okay. So it's taking our memorization that we know we need to do triangle fold a certain way, right? And then adding in application to build out comprehension when we get tempted to maybe not cover that whole back of the set to really push us to that professional integrity. So as we start to wrap this episode, I want to give you all a little bit of homework. I need you all to think about how often we just do things because we're going through the motion, or, are you ready? This is how we've always done it. Stab my sterile processing heart. Every time we say that phrase, I feel like our industry takes 2 steps or 2 giant leaps back, okay? But I really need you to think and wonder how often we just do things because we're going through the motion and that's how we've always done it. And this isn't just specific to sterile processing professionals. If you're not in the field yet, don't worry, you will be, and you're studying to take your certification test, how often do you just do things because that's how you've always done them? And have we ever asked ourselves why we do them like that? When's the last time we've refreshed or challenged how we've always done it in normal everyday processes and in our sterile processing practices? This is really going to help us build our own why. This is an active exercise, just like the ones we just did, that we can apply in real life. Because why isn't just about comprehending the motives and reasons behind a process or a concept. The question itself is the tool for digging deeper into understanding. So while we get frustrated at kids when they're like, why? Listen, it's because, they might be because they're obnoxious. Okay, we can't ignore that. But kids ask why because they don't understand all the aspects. And just when they think they understand an aspect, a new one pops up. So while yes, the multiple whys are frustrating, we as adults in our test preparation and in our sterile processing careers can take the whys, which is also a huge lean tool, to figure out why we're actually doing something the way we've always done it. This will actually be so good for next week's episode when we talk about our why. So ask yourself why, folks, and what we want to ask why to. Until next week. And that's going to do it for this week's episode. For more sterile processing education and resources, make sure to visit beyondclean.net or follow Beyond Clean on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram. And don't forget to check out over 1,000 SPD related videos at youtube.com/beyondclean. If you have any questions or comments for the show, you can reach out to info@beyondclean.net. Finally, make sure to download the Beyond Clean mobile app on the Apple and Android app stores so that you don't miss a future episode of any of the other awesome Beyond Clean podcasts. My name's Sarah B. Cruz, and you've been listening to Confidence Certification. Until next time, keep fighting dirty and pass that test with confidence.
The views and opinions expressed in this podcast series are of Sarah B. Cruz only and do not represent the company she works for or collaborates with.